Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Father. This is a game that is a classic. I mean, it was the start of a series that I can only say has done some very decent entries. Now, the first one came out in 1993. And this was around the time when a new sci-fi show had come to the airwaves. Same year, a new sci-fi show came to the airwaves, a little one called the X-Files. And it's set. This game is set in New Orleans, a city that is both steeped in in modern and mysticism. I mean, certain things that sometimes come to mind when you mention New Orleans is jazz and voodoo, because New Orleans was might still be a hotbed for voodoo. And this game was one of the gets a lot of credit due to Jane Jensen, who is she's a bit of an author. And as the game works, you play Gabriel Knight, who owns a bookstore, an antique and rare bookstore, and he is also a budding writer. In fact, he's working at the current time on a book, and he's getting some help from a friend, his childhood friend, Detective Mosley. Now, I'm going to say this. You play this game, you are going to hear a lot of big name voices in the game. You have, of course, playing Gabriel Knight, you have Tim Curry voicing Gabriel Knight, a role he will reprise in the third entry of the series. And, that's definitely a big name, big talent. And it's one of the rare times Tim Curry plays a heroic character. I mean, the man loves playing villains. But he did find a great sense of satisfaction of somebody coming up to him and says, "You were the voice of Gabriel Knight." And Mark Hamill is the voice of Mosby in the first game. Leah Remini is the voice of Grace Nakamura in the game. And there's some other big names in there. I mean, you got Jim Cummings, who is a very talented voice actor. I think he just basically plays some bit parts in this game. You have Michael Dorn, Rocky Carroll, Leon Vance from NCIS. So this is some big names. Maybe some of them weren't as big as they were at the time, but they are some very well-known names. And it's a beautiful game to play. It's a mix of mystery and all that. I mean, I played through it, and it was a very fun game to play through. And yes, it's one that sometimes you need a walkthrough to help you for some of them. But there are certain things you need to know. I mean, certain tasks need to be completed by certain days. And, trying to get them all complete, you could get some complete even days earlier than they need to be. For example, I think the first time I played it, I needed to get the drawings together, but I didn't necessarily fully need to do that until the end of day 3. So it's just proving that you can get things together for later tasks earlier in the game than you have to. Now, of course, backing to the story, Gabriel Knight is working on this book, and the police are trying to solve a bunch of mysterious murders that seem to be voodoo related. And in the course of the game, the investigation closes. Gabriel is also certain that these are really voodoo murders, and he finds a way to prove it, reopening the case. We also get introduced to a woman named, with the last name of Getty. And, she takes a shine to Gabriel. Well, he takes a shine to her. But as it plays out, see, Gabriel is unaware of his family's past, and this is because his own grandfather kept it away from him. Well, his grandfather and father, they didn't want anything to do. See, Gabriel is his family's real name is Ritter. And over the years, for centuries, the Ritter family has been fighting darkness. And I'm going to either mispronounce it greatly or I'm going to get it right. They are their title is officially Schattenjäger, Shadow Hunter. And during this game, which is given a listing of 10 days that you have to work through, which in early video games, they didn't worry about stuff like, oh, you have to run back and forth between locations. So obviously, they didn't worry about the time constraints in that. But each day, of course, certain tasks have to be completed in order for the days to advance. If you haven't moved forward, it means you haven't done everything that you need to do. And as you advance your way through the game, the game finds out about his background, that he is the last of the Ritter line, that he's supposed to be the next Schattenjäger. And as it plays out, his past and Miss Getty's past is linked. And so, this mystery has been not only links, did he get into this due to his own writing skill, he got into it as literally it was ordained to happen. And over the course of the series, you have everyone trying to solve, and over the course of the game, he's trying to solve the mystery. And This is actually one of the few games that they had that had officially two endings. And this was just the start of multiple endings in Sierra games. Not every game, of course, would feature multiple endings, but this was one of the early ones where we had quote multiple endings. For example, I mean, depending what he does at the end of the game, he'll still be victorious, but it either he dies or he doesn't die. Of course, the die where he doesn't die, that's the canon ending. And this game is it may can be frustrating from time to time, but you can figure the things out. But there's also certain other things. Like there's two sections I think where you can really die in the game. Maybe more. I've never tempted fate enough to try it. First off, uh, I think one of the sections would be if you don't turn on the fan when the boa is gets dropped on you. Another is trying to survive the burial grounds that you will go to on day 9. Can be very tricky to get through that part unscathed. But that's actually one of the burial grounds is one of the trickier ones because you have to quote uh, get all the tiles in the proper places, and it's designed like a clock, and it's also something you should remember for later in the game, because later in the game you do find out it is a voodoo cult and they have a modern day location. But as it works out, and another difficult section in the game is when you have to get a cop distracted so you can find the scene of the recent murder. This is actually on day 1. And what it requires is getting a mime to the cop to annoy him. It's not easy, because if he gets distracted by one little thing, you've lost him and you have to go back to get him. And that's a little bit annoying in my book, but it's great for humor. I mean, anybody getting mad at a mime is funny as hell, especially as the mime does what they do. And there is something that this book is one of. This got adapted into a novel form by Jane Jensen later. And I should say that it was adapted into, and in fact, I think when the second book came out, the second game came out, I want to believe that a book of the first one was included with it in certain special editions. But you could also have bought it in the bookstores. You might even be able to find it nowadays on Amazon or something. Hopefully at a decent price, because this is a book to read as well. And the beauty of it is, if you read the book, it doesn't ruin. I mean, you'll have an idea how to play the game, but it doesn't tell you how to play the game. And I should also add that this game had one of the more unique boxes out there. I mean, when you had a bunch of games out there that were usually in rectangular boxes, the first Gabriel Knight game had a box that was just weird looking. And I mean it. admit I missed out on this one when it first came out, and that's mainly because I didn't necessarily have a computer that could run it at the time, and it's one to experience with the CD and hear the voices. And so I ended up getting it after it came. And the second one was re-released as a group set. But it is a beautiful game. I recommend it to anyone. It's a great game. It's a mystery. You could solve it by the end of the, you could solve it. You may not get everything, but it just shows you don't need to get everything to win the game. But, it's possible. And that's all I'm going to say about Gabriel Knight 1, Sins of the Father. Like I said, great game. Something to experience. Until next time, and I hope you've listened to the end. I appreciate that. I bid you adieu, and check out some of the other retrospectives I have up, as well as some of the other playthroughs I have up on the channel. Bye!